The polished black shoes of Sergeant Edward Winslow echoed with mechanical precision across the gleaming floor of Heathrow's Terminal 5. His scarlet uniform, a vivid splash of tradition amidst the sea of casual travelers, stood in stark contrast to the hurried pace of the airport. The towering bearskin cap added nearly a foot to his already imposing frame, and his white-gloved hands gripped the corner of a flag-draped casket with unyielding steadiness. Beside him, Private Cooper mirrored his every step, their movements a silent testament to the discipline forged in service. The Union Jack, carefully draped over the casket, bore the weight of Lieutenant Matthew Henshaw, a Royal Marine who had made the ultimate sacrifice in a classified operation. The afternoon rush of Terminal 5 swirled around them. Business travelers clutching briefcases, families herding children, the hum of overhead announcements. But as the honor guard procession moved forward, conversations fell silent. Footsteps slowed, and eyes turned to the solemn sight. Among the onlookers stood the Henshaw family, their presence a quiet anchor in the bustling terminal. Thomas Henshaw, a 73-year-old veteran, stood ramrod straight despite his years, his jacket adorned with medals that caught the fluorescent light. Beside him, Rebecca, his daughter-in-law, rested a gentle hand on young Emma, whose wide eyes followed the casket carrying her uncle. For Americans over 55s, this scene evokes memories of fallen heroes returning home, perhaps from Vietnam, Iraq, or Afghanistan. Moments that bind families and communities in shared pride and grief. The honor guard's measured steps were more than ceremony. They were a promise fulfilled, a vow to bring a brother-in-arms home with the dignity his sacrifice demanded. Winslow had known Henshaw for 7 years. They had trained together, served 2 tours in Afghanistan side by side, and shared the unspoken bond of men who trusted each other with their lives. 3 nights ago, a call had shattered Winslow's world. Henshaw hadn't made it back. His friend's last words echoed in his mind. If anything happens, Eddie, bring me home proper. Each step through this terminal was a fulfillment of that promise. The weight of the casket, far heavier than its physical burden. The airport, with its gleaming glass walls and relentless pace, seemed an unlikely stage for such a moment. Yet it was here that duty and honor would clash with the demands of efficiency. The procession's solemn rhythm was broken by a clipped voice. Richard Barnes, the terminal operations manager, approached with a hurried step, his navy suit impeccable, but his tie slightly askew. His fingers tapped impatiently against a tablet, his expression one of a man whose carefully orchestrated airport flow had been disrupted. "Excuse me, but you need to pick up the pace here," he said, his tone sharp. "We've got 3 international flights deplaning, and this concourse must stay clear." Winslow's eyes remained fixed forward, his pace unchanged. "Sir," he replied, his voice quiet but authoritative, "this is Lieutenant Matthew Henshaw of the Royal Marines. We will proceed at the appropriate pace for escorting the fallen." Barnes glanced at the Union Jack, his impatience undeterred. "I respect that. But surely you understand the needs of an airport. We can arrange a more efficient route through our service corridors." Private Cooper's jaw twitched imperceptibly, but Winslow's response was steady. "That won't be possible. Sir, Lieutenant Henshaw will be escorted with full honors through the main terminal, as arranged and approved by airport administration." Barnes's voice rose, drawing curious glances from travelers. "I don't care what was arranged. This is disrupting operations." A murmur rippled through the crowd as travelers began to sense the gravity of the confrontation unfolding before them. Thomas Henshaw stepped forward, his military bearing unbroken by age. "That's my son," he said, his voice carrying the weight of paternal grief. "He died ensuring others could come home. Surely you can grant him the dignity of the proper path." Young Emma, clutching her mother's hand, looked up with innocent conviction. "Uncle Matthew was a hero, wasn't he?" "Grandpa, Mom says heroes deserve special honor." Barnes hesitated, his professional demeanor softening briefly at the child's words, but he quickly reasserted himself. "Sir, I sympathize, but this is an airport, not a military base. We have protocols. Winslow's voice cut through the tension. Lieutenant Henshaw led a rescue operation that saved 27 civilians and 14 servicemen. He was awarded the Military Cross posthumously. His escort will proceed as arranged. The crowd grew, travelers forming an impromptu audience. Their phones lowered, their hurried paces slowed. Among them was John Carter, a retired American Marine colonel, traveling through London, his weathered face, lined from years in Vietnam and Desert Storm, softened as he watched the procession. He remembered Dover Air Force Base, where caskets arrived under the cover of night, greeted by honor guards and grieving families. For Carter, and for Americans over 55s, this moment was a reminder of the ceremonies that honor sacrifice, the rituals that give meaning to loss. Barnes, undeterred, moved to intercept the procession further down the concourse, gesturing to a service corridor door propped open behind him. Per Heathrow Security Protocol 15B, funeral processions must utilize service corridors. I've arranged an alternate route. Winslow's response was calm but firm. Section 15B applies to civilian funeral processions. Military escorts are covered under Section 22A. Established following conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, it grants honor guards direct routes through main terminals, confirmed with Director Cranford. Barnes blinked, caught off guard. That may be, but as operations manager, I'm making a real-time assessment. This is non-negotiable. The tension escalated as Barnes stepped directly into the procession's path, his hand brushing the edge of the Union Jack as he gestured emphatically toward the service corridor. "This ends now," he declared, his voice tight with frustration. The terminal fell silent, the hum of announcements fading as if the airport itself held its breath. In a movement so swift it seemed almost balletic, Winslow's gloved hand grasped Barnes's wrist. Not violently, but with unyielding resolve. "You will not touch that flag, sir," he said, his voice steady, but laced with the steel of a man who had faced combat. "This is Lieutenant Matthew Henshaw. He died shielding his team from an explosion during an extraction operation. The flag you touched honors his sacrifice." A murmur ran through the crowd, travelers standing at attention. Winslow continued, his voice carrying just enough to reach the gathered onlookers. "Do you know what Lieutenant Henshaw was doing when he died? He was ensuring civilians caught in a conflict zone could board an evacuation transport, maintaining order in chaos. The parallel hung unspoken in the air. Henshaw had created paths for others, just as Winslow now fought for his dignified passage. Barnes swallowed hard, his earlier certainty faltering under the weight of the crowd's silent judgment. "I'm simply doing my job," he managed, his voice hollow. "As was he," Winslow replied. "The difference is, he gave his life doing it." Thomas Henshaw spoke again, his voice quiet but commanding. "My son understood protocol. Mr. Barnes, he followed rules his entire career, but he also knew when those rules needed to yield to something greater." Winslow released Barnes's wrist with the same controlled precision, returning to a ceremonial stance. The message was clear. Some lines could not be crossed. Among the onlookers, a middle-aged American couple, Tom and Linda Hayes, watched with tears in their eyes. Their son had served in Iraq, and though he returned home, they knew families who hadn't been so fortunate. For them, and for many Americans over 55s, this moment was a call to protect what matters, to stand firm for the values that define a nation. A new voice broke the standoff. Airport Director Martin Cranford strode through the parting crowd, his expression one of professional concern mixed with disapproval. "I'm aware of our protocols, Mr. Barnes, including Section 22A, which I signed off on 3 years ago after consulting with military liaison officers." Turning to Winslow, he softened, "Sergeant, please accept my apologies for this interruption. Your escort will proceed as arranged." Cranford addressed the terminal at large. "Ladies and gentlemen, a fallen serviceman is being escorted home today. Those who wish to show their respect may line the route. Those who need to continue to their flights, please use the Eastern Concourse." The response was immediate and humbling. Travelers who moments before had been rushing to gates now lined up along the paths, creating a corridor of respect. Business people stood shoulder to shoulder with families. Airport staff stepped out from behind counters, and even the coffee shop emptied as baristas stood at attention. Young Emma whispered, "Look, Mommy." Everyone's standing up for Uncle Matthew. Rebecca, tears streaming down her face, replied, "That's what happens when a hero comes home, sweetheart." Thomas saluted, his eyes meeting Winslow's in a moment of shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement between one military man and another. As the procession resumed, the honor guard steps echoed in the reverent silence. Winslow and Cooper maintained their flawless bearing, but the atmosphere had shifted. The terminal, once a place of transience, had become a sacred space, a testament to the power of collective respect. Among the crowd, Colonel Carter felt a lump in his throat. He thought of the countless ceremonies he'd attended, the names read aloud at memorials, the flags folded with care. For Americans over 55 who have lived through wars and seen their communities rally around veterans, this moment was a reminder of the traditions that endure, the rituals that give solace to those left behind. The procession reached the Henshaw family, and Winslow broke protocol in the smallest, most significant way. His eyes shifted briefly to meet Thomas's, a silent promise fulfilled. Emma, watching carefully, raised her small hand in an unpracticed but heartfelt salute as her uncle's casket passed. The gesture, innocent yet profound, brought fresh tears to many onlookers. Linda Hayes, clutching her husband's arm, whispered, "That little girl will carry this moment forever." For older Americans, who often mentor their grandchildren or volunteer in their communities, Emma's salute was a symbol of hope, a sign that the next generation would learn the value of sacrifice. Outside, the afternoon sun illuminated a waiting hearse, its driver standing at respectful attention. The loading of the casket was executed with flawless precision, each movement deliberate and dignified. Winslow and Cooper stepped back in unison, rendering a final salute as the hearse door closed. The crowd began to disperse, returning to their travels with something profound added to their journey. A glimpse of traditions that still mattered, of principles worth upholding. Barnes, standing to the side, watched in silence, his earlier certainty replaced by uncomfortable self-awareness. Cranford approached him, his voice low but firm. "Sometimes, Richard, efficiency isn't the most important value." Barnes nodded stiffly, his perspective shifting as he observed the human impact of what he had tried to reroute. As Winslow prepared to leave, Thomas Henshaw approached, extending a weathered hand. "Thank you for bringing my boy home with honor," he said, his grip still firm despite his years. Winslow knelt to Emma's level. "Did you know my uncle well?" she asked. "I did," he replied gently. "He spoke of you often, said you had his same smile." Emma nodded solemnly. "Mommy says I need to remember him properly. Is that what you were doing?" Winslow smiled. "That's exactly right. Some things are worth doing properly, no matter what stands in the way." The incident at Heathrow was more than a clash of protocol and principle. It was a testament to the enduring power of honor, a reminder that standing firm for what's right can ripple far beyond a single moment. In the weeks that followed, the story spread. Travelers who witnessed the procession shared videos online, sparking conversations about honoring veterans. Colonel Carter, inspired by what he saw, wrote an op-ed for a major U.S. newspaper urging communities to create corridors of respect for fallen soldiers at American airports. His words struck a chord, leading to initiatives where volunteers greeted military transports with salutes and support for grieving families. In one small Ohio town, a group of veterans organized a monthly vigil at their local airport, standing in silence as caskets arrived, their presence a quiet tribute to those who served. Back in the Henshaw's hometown, Emma's school launched a project to collect stories of local veterans. Emma shared her uncle's legacy, her small voice recounting the day at Heathrow with a clarity that moved her classmates. Thomas, inspired by Winslow's dignity, began speaking at community events, emphasizing the importance of teaching respect for service. His words resonated with older Americans, many of whom lead similar efforts through Rotary clubs, churches, or VFW posts, preserving history and mentoring youth. Winslow, too, carried the moment forward. Back at his regiment, he mentored young recruits, teaching them that honor isn't just in ceremonial steps, but in standing firm for what's right. His bond with Henshaw became a lesson in loyalty, shared during quiet moments at the barracks. For Americans over 55, this story is a call to action. It's a reminder of the sacrifices that underpin freedom, the traditions that honor those sacrifices, and the communities that uphold them. Many in this age group have personal connections to military service, perhaps as veterans themselves, or as parents and grandparents of those who served. The Henshaw's grief and pride mirror their own experiences at military funerals or Memorial Day ceremonies. Winslow's stand reflects the resolve of those who fought for veterans' benefits, preserved local memorials, or taught younger generations about sacrifice. The corridor of respect recalls moments of unity, like post-9/11 gatherings or Veterans Day parades, where communities set aside differences to honor heroes. The story also invites reflection on modern challenges. In a world that often prioritizes efficiency over tradition, what values are worth defending? For older Americans, the answer might lie in preserving ceremonies like taps at funerals, supporting veterans organizations, or ensuring schools teach military history. These acts, like Winslow's escort, honor the past while guiding the future. Consider the ways you can contribute. Volunteer at a local VFW, donate to a scholarship fund for children of fallen soldiers, or share a veteran's story with your grandchildren. What traditions do you hold dear, and how do you keep them alive in your community? Your actions, no matter how small, ensure that the legacy of heroes like Lieutenant Henshaw endures.